Welcome to episode number 346 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. You can find us by searching for Beyond Social Media Show. We are recording on April 17, 2021. Last week, you'll want to check it out if you missed it, episode number 345, I interviewed Pat Lilja, who is the CMO of Pritzker Hageman Law and a legal digital marketing expert. We had a long conversation about legal marketing in the digital realm. And then next week, BL will be interviewing Miranda Head, who is the host of the TikTok famous podcasts and Cooking with Miranda on TikTok, where she has 7 million followers. That's a fascinating and delightful interview. You want to tune in for that. But this week, we have topics. We're going to talk about marketing topics rather than interviewing people this week. And they include Google Earth Timelapse, Steak-Umm strikes again, Reddit audio, Broadway returns, LinkedIn creators and secret endorsements, selling kidneys, Boomfluencers, NFTs, Google post conversions, Cribby, privacy headache, and zero-click data. You'll want to stick around for some data on search, zero-click searches. But we kick it off with the best story of the week. And BL, you have that honor. What do you got?
Well, Earth Day happens in the coming week, and Google has something called Google Timelapse, and it lets you watch time unfold and witness 40 years of planetary change. This is from a Google blog story by Rebecca Moore and from Product Hunt. And so what it is a global zoomable time-lapse video of the entire planet from 1984 to now, and the driving force behind the update is to show the rapid environmental change that's happening on our planet in the last half century. So it's the biggest update to Google Earth since 2017, and you can see our planet in completely new dimensions. And with time-lapse in Google Earth, what they did was they had 24 million satellite photos from the past 37 years, and they compiled them into an interactive 4D experience. And it's impossible to watch this and deny that climate change is happening. And so what they said about it is we have a clearer picture of our changing planet right at our fingertips, one that shows not just problems, but also solutions, as well as mesmerizingly beautiful natural phenomena that unfolded over decades. And as you look at what's happening, 5 themes emerge: forest change, urban growth, warming temperatures, sources of energy, and the fragile beauty of the world. And it's a guided tour of each of those categories to help you better understand them. And so you can open Google Earth and you can click on a ship's wheel to find time-lapse in storytelling in the Google storytelling platform, which is called Voyager. And then you can see interactive guided tours. And there are more than 800 time-lapse videos in 2D and 3D at Google's time-lapse YouTube channel. And you can select any video you want as a ready-to-use MP4 video, or you can sit back and watch the videos on YouTube. And from government and researchers to publishers, teachers, advocates, showing people how to use time-lapse is going to shine a light on our planet. And Google says that in collaboration with their partners, they'll update Google Earth annually with new time-lapse imagery. And they're going to do that for the next decade. And they hope that this perspective will ground debates, encourage discovery, and shift perspectives on some of our most pressing global issues. And, you cannot look at this and say there's no such thing as global warming.
I could not even pay attention to what you're saying throughout the whole thing because I'm thinking the whole time, am I really that old? Has Google really been around that long to have that much data from 40 years ago of satellite data? And so I grabbed my calculator and figured it out. So yeah, no, they haven't been around that long. They must have got that must be public domain satellite data they got from somewhere. But that's awfully cool. Very good. Love the visualization.
They have been around for a long time, though. I mean, they've been around since the 80s, right?
No, 1998 is when Google was founded.
Really?
Yeah. Don't do that to me, VL. This is a Daily Dot story from Siobhan Ball. Episode 304, we discussed Steak-Umm and how they held the Steak-Umm brand held a data masterclass on Twitter, and how delightful that was, and how off wouldn't expect that from a steak brand. But here they go again. On Monday, the meat company picked a fight with Neil deGrasse Tyson by responding to a tweet from the celebrity astrophysicist that said, the good thing about science is that it's true, whether or not you believe in it. With Steak-Umm's responded with log off, bro, and then went on to say, the irony of Neil's tweet is that by framing science itself as true, he's influencing people to be more skeptical of it in a time of unprecedented misinformation. Science is an ever-refining process to find truth, not a dogma. No matter his intent, this message isn't helpful. And then they responded to another Twitter user with, science itself isn't true. It's a constantly refining process used to uncover truths based in material reality. And that process is still full of mistakes. And he spells steaks with STEAKS. Neil just posts ridiculous sound bites like this for clout, and he has no respect for epistemology. And then finally, they ended it with obligatory thread to remind people that we're a brand selling products. So everything we do is based in self-interest to grow our business. Steak-Umm bless is how they sign off all their tweets. But I just love it.
I'd like to meet the person that handles their account. That's hilarious.
Mm.
So as I told you before the show, I'm going to try and do this one without crying, but New York City's coming back, baby, and Broadway's coming back. And this is from the city of New York. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda in Times Square. And they're singing and they're dancing. It's the first live performance in the Broadway area in over a year. And he says, creativity is our heart and our soul. This is the first live performance in a year. For us to be whole, it has to come back. So, thank you, Lin Miranda, for helping us spread the news that our Times Square vaccination site will serve the theater, film, and TV industries. And New York City says we're bringing our arts and culture back strong in New York City. And that's the missing link, because the arts are the thing that, well, a lot of things suffered a lot, but the arts in particular are the heart and soul of New York and any big city, and it has to come back. And this is from NewYorkCity.gov, and Lin-Manuel Miranda cried in the video, and they sang and they danced, and it's wonderful.
Fantastic. I have never gone to a Broadway show. I would absolutely love to, and I'm glad they're coming back so that I possibly can.
Well, and then we get to meet in person, which we've also never done.
Yep. Yep.
People don't believe that when I tell them we've never met in person in 8 years.
Pretty crazy. Yeah.
It is.
Yep. Get ready for the LinkedIn influencers. They are coming, according to Adweek's David Cohen. There's this story reports that LinkedIn says that their conversations on the platform were up nearly 50% from last year from 2019. So if people are having more conversations on the platform, they're spending more time there, and that means there's more ad inventory. So of course, LinkedIn's going to encourage more conversations. And to do so, they've introduced new features for creators. And what do creators want? More followers. So now you can activate a creator mode from your profile dashboard. And once you do that, you get a follow button for your profile. You get expertise hashtags to display on your profile. The featured and activity sections of your profile will become more prominent on your profile, will move up higher on your profile. If you're using LinkedIn Live, your live broadcast, this is kind of cool, your live broadcast will play in your profile background while you're streaming to raise their visibility. And you'll get the ability to create a video cover story, which is a short video for your profile that allows you to make an introduction of yourself and discuss your skills. So that's fascinating. I haven't got it yet. I'm kind of pissed off about that, but you know, it's rolling out, so hopefully I'll get it soon. The other thing I noticed is in my on my profile, I when I went to somebody else's profile on LinkedIn, there was a panel, and I haven't seen this before. There's a panel asking me, who would you go to for questions about whatever X? In this case, it's corporate communications. Then it listed 4 people that I'm connected with and asked me to select one of them as a person that had relevant experience for that question. And it was the sentence below the title in this panel is help us identify relevant opportunities and content for your connection. So it looks like it doesn't look like what they're doing, what LinkedIn is doing is taking known connections, people you presumably know, and asking for recommendations behind the scenes without those people necessarily knowing about it, in order to determine their basically their authority and expertise on a given topic.
Yes, I noticed that as well. And that's relatively new in the last week or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking about relatively new, the latest Clubhouse competitor is Reddit. They're quietly exploring a moderator-led voice chat like Clubhouse. This is from Jeremiah Oyang, and he is keeping a list of all of the competitors of Clubhouse, and it's pretty freaking amazing. But voice chats, which is not yet an official name for the Reddit project, may be part of Reddit's power-ups program, which they announced back in August. And it's an experiment that involves releasing additional features for subreddits whose members purchase a minimum threshold of power-up subscriptions. I don't know what they cost because it hasn't been announced, but examples of power-up features that were initially announced in August were the ability to upload and stream up to HD quality video and inline GIFs and comments. So there's a lot of changes taking place around audio, and obviously it's going to be ubiquitous. And since you can't be in all of those places, and there are now something like 40 of them, you are going to have to make some choices about which ones, if any, you want to participate in.
All the big names going there, developing their own voice chat platforms. It's clear that is in our future. That it's not going away.
Yeah, for sure.
That we're going to have to figure out how to use this the best. And by the way, BL, it's GIF.
Oh, how do you like that? Okay, so just in the last week, Clubhouse added monetization for creators, and they rolled it out to 1,000 people. They're going to roll it out to 65,000 people this week, and they intend to roll it out to everybody, meaning that people who have a big audience are going to be able to get money directly, and they claim that they're not taking any of it, that the platform itself will take whatever percentage they take, but that Clubhouse won't. So the monetization is definitely a distinguishing factor, except for Fireside Chat, which started out with that. You've been able to monetize, and on Fireside, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you can also record and then share the recordings.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I mean, obviously the monetization is a big thing, but the recording, I think that has to be as a feature. Because yeah, remember when Snapchat came along, it was ephemeral, and everybody, oh, it's a new thing, and everything's going to go away. And like, why would I use it? If as a marketer, right, exactly. Why would I use it if I'm going to lose it? So yeah. So I talked about LinkedIn influencers, and now we have grandfluencers. Apparently, this is from a Reagan article by Rahel Marcy Hazen. So this is a new type of influencer in town. They're grandfluencers. Baby boomers control 70% of all disposable income in this country. They spend 15 hours online every week. They largely believe that social media improves their lives, and they spend more money than younger generations, about $7 billion each year, according to this article. Yet most marketers set aside just 10% of their budget for boomers, while allocating 50% to millennials. And during this era of pandemic, economic uncertainty, political instability, social upheaval, and never-ending news alerts, people want authenticity. And traditional aspirational lifestyle influencers of beautiful young people doing beautiful things in beautiful places is tone deaf to our state of the world. This company, Aura Frames, a maker of digital picture frames, had their most successful influencer partnership last year with a woman named Charlotte Simpson, who's a 65-year-old retired guidance counselor at Traveling Black Widow. Her work accounted for the company's best performing ad in 2020, bringing in nearly 5 times more conversions than any influencer ad and 6 times more engagement than any ad creative. So audiences are seeking content that lifts, that is diverse and makes them feel good. And, what's more heartwarming than grandma trying out the new technologies? I, in fact, tried to get my mother to be an influencer without knowing it. I recorded her and put her on YouTube before she died with a series of videos called Gracie Speaks. And we'll share those in the show notes too. But I thought this was a fascinating take, and it's true. There's a lot of money to be made from boomers and Gen Xers, but little budget spent on marketing to them. For influencers,
Well,
anyway.
I think that's very good news. I'm glad you have that in the good news section. So, okay, so this is about a kidney transplant NFT, non-fungible token. So someone named Trevor DeHaas is auctioning his 2017 tweet of the dinner he received at Fry Fest as an NFT, hoping to raise $80,000 for his kidney transplant. Now, if you don't remember, the Fry Festival was a total debacle, and there was it was a sad sandwich that they got. They were promised luxury accommodations, and they were promised all these wonderful things were going to happen, and it was all a bust. None of it happened. So he's auctioning off his NFT for his sandwich, which I guess he saved. Well, it's a tweet with a picture of it, and he hopes to raise the money for his kidney transplant. And this is from a Verge article by Kim Lyons. And I'll talk a little bit more about NFTs later, but I hope he makes the money.
He does too, and I hope it's not a scam. But I also need to auction off some worthless thing for lots of money. So I got to think about what worthless thing I need to auction off
right?
for lots of money, because yep, I got to get in on this. Here's something that's not worthless. This is from Greg Gifford at Moz. Moz does those whiteboard Friday videos. They're fantastic. This is another one of them. This is about Google Posts from Google My Business posts. They're basically the status update for Google My Business. And the point he makes in this, it's a great whiteboard video, but the main point he makes is that they are not a ranking factor. So using Google Posts for your Google My Business account does not increase your visibility, but it is a conversion factor. So think of the Google Posts in terms of conversions. It is the status updates on your Google My Business display at the bottom of your panel, knowledge panel. It shows the 10 most recent posts in a little carousel. And when you get to the end, you can click on a link and see all the older posts. But you'll usually want to see the what's new, use the what's new post, because it allows the most text in the thumbnail view. So when people see it before clicking on it, you can write something that's more compelling, and you can include a call to action. You get basically 3 full lines of available text space for that. But we'll put a link to the whiteboard video in the show notes. It's really good in talking about all the details, but do think of it as a conversion thing, not a visibility factor.
That's very interesting. I did not know that. So I'm going to put information in the show notes all about NFTs, and the motherlode of information about NFTs is called the NFT canon, and that is there's an article in the Atlantic and it says NFTs weren't supposed to end like this, and talks about like how this is all going to end badly. He says a cryptocurrency expert introduces me to the dystopian nightmare of art as a financial instrument. There is a huge amount of information, but Andreessen Horowitz has the NFT canon, which goes on, it's like a book. And there's a story in the Atlantic. There's a whole bunch of other links that I will put in the show notes, because folks, we need to learn about this stuff. This stuff is not going away, and it is beyond the shiny object of the moment. And I think it's really important to read both sides of the coin and learn about, you know, both views about it, because there's a lot of hype and hysteria about it. And you know, how much of that is real and how much of that is not, is something that we as marketers really need to learn. And I also would like to sell some useless things, but in order to do that, you know, you have to open an account, and you have to mint a coin, and you know, you have to, it's not, you don't just do it. You got to learn about it first. So I will put some notes in there that will help you learn about it. And I highly recommend that you educate yourself, because this is not going away.
Oh, good. Very good. Are we on the bad stuff?
Yeah, I don't have any, so it's all yours.
I got one. I got to put on my glasses for this, because this is not something I found online. It's actually a print publication. This is from The Week magazine, and
I love that magazine.
yeah, it's great. So this is a little blurb from I'll just read it. A Minnesota company has created self-cleaning underwear that doesn't need to be washed. Called Cribby, the smell-resistant undergarment is composed of a blend of bamboo, eucalyptus, beechwood, bacteria-destroying carbon copper fibers. Herculeon, the company behind the product, and said that the Cribby can go weeks and even months without washing. The company conceded that some people may think that's gross, but said that as long as users let them air out for a few hours a day after use, and they'll smell as fresh as unworn underwear. I just like, that's got to be the worst business decision ever.
Yeah, really. You know, that's where you wanted to be a fly on the wall in the room where they were saying, let's make this and let's sell it.
Yeah. So yeah, I won't be buying that. Maybe I'll buy one and sell it as a non-fungible token. I don't know. Before I dive into the canon of non-fungible token stuff, though, I need to read up about privacy, because just around the bend, I think on Tuesday, Apple will be releasing iOS 14.5, which includes privacy changes that require apps to ask for user permission before tracking data and activity. That is going to have a profound effect on a lot of analytics data that we marketers are used to. So I put together a reading list for us to read before Tuesday, and it includes a bunch of articles. We'll just put links to it in the show notes, but among them are how Google's upcoming privacy settings will affect digital marketing. Google starts trialing the Flock cookie alternative in Chrome, how e-commerce might function on a cookieless web, pivoting to privacy first, why this is an adapt or die moment, and many, many others. So we'll put links to all those articles in the show notes for everybody to have for the bedside reading.
So that's our homework. You have to read about NFTs and Google and the new privacy things.
Yep.
So do you have more bad news? Because I don't.
That's it.
Okay, so I do have a smile. Who knew there's a comfort dog in the Capitol in DC? His name is Officer Clarence, and he's the nation's first police comfort dog. He's based on the Jim Gaffigan show, and he played a Ford F-150 in a commercial. he responded to, he's been to Sandy Hook, Boston bombing, and Las Vegas. Biden kissed him. Officer Clarence is an indoor dog. He's 11 years old. He loves stuffed animals, but he only stares at them. He never bites them. He weighs 160 pounds, and on a given day, he'll down 4 cups of kibble. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, my little dog Lucy, who weighs 18 pounds, will eat half a cup of kibble morning and night. And so 4 cups of kibble's a lot. And he's just adorable. He's this big goofy Saint Bernard, and they bring him to make people feel better, which is in a time when that is so necessary.
So my little cat, Bella, is a handful, probably half a pound or whatever. She can eat probably 4 times her weight in cat food. She's just voracious. And BL, I think my cats are defective because they don't, I can put an open box anywhere and they just have no interest in getting in it. They have no interest in open boxes. I don't understand it.
It's the only time I ever heard that about a cat.
Right.
So that brings us to shiny objects. You have one?
I do. This is pretty cool. I haven't tried it yet. I'm planning on trying it. It's called Community. And I found this from a Variety article by Todd Spangler. Variety is a text messaging platform that celebrities and brands are using. It's not just for the big boys, though. You can use it too. It is for fee. You are charged on a vault, how many contacts you have. So there's different tiered pricing based on how many contacts you have. But Barack Obama, Snoop Dogg, Alicia Keys, Reese Witherspoon, Mark Cuban are all on it. You can, what you do is you sign up for it, you get a number that is your text number, and then you can basically text your list anytime you want. And I think this is I'm going to recommend it to clients and use it myself and test it out myself, because in this age of privacy, the things you need are email addresses and phone numbers. You need direct connection with your audience if you're gonna maintain it, regardless of what other companies do. So that's why I bring this up, but I will put a link to it in the show notes for people to check out.
What is it called?
Community.
Oh, you said Variety. Okay. It's called Community.
No,
That's very cool.
It's from an article.
So
I found it in an article in Variety.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is this is the free part of SEO Clarity, which the subscription to which starts at $700 a month, but they have a whole bunch of free resources. And one of them is their a Chrome extension called the Spark Content Optimizer, and it shows you keyword performance and ranking and over 40 technical issues and backlink authority for any web page that you're looking at, which is really an interesting thing, and that's free. And then there's a schema builder where you can create and validate schema structured data code for your site from your browser. It won the best search software tool of 2020 from the US Search Awards list of SEO tools. So geeky folks, that's worth checking out.
Very cool.
I know you'll be there, Dave.
Yeah, I'll try it out. I've tried out several schema builders, and you usually need it. It gives you a good start, but you need to customize it. So we'll see how this one works. I'll try that out. The FCC wants people to use, and this is from a Mac Rumors article by Julie Clover. The Federal Communications Commission is asking Americans to test their internet speed with the FCC Speed Test app, so that they can gather research into broadband availability by measuring basically what broadband speeds are around the United States, and not having to rely on what the broadband providers say their speeds are. So they said in a quote, to close the gap between digital haves and have-nots, we are working to build a comprehensive user-friendly data set on broadband availability. Expanding the base of consumers who use the FCC Speed Test app will enable us to provide improved coverage information to the public and add to the measurement tools we're developing to show where broadband is truly available throughout the United States. This is by acting chairwoman Rosen Workel. I hope they show also where there's no competition, because that would be nice.
You have that situation, right?
Yes, I do.
Your only choice is Comcast?
I have another choice, but it's not a comparable choice. It's not, you know,
Oh.
yeah.
Boy, in my building, I can have Verizon, I can have RCN, I can have Spectrum, and there's one other. So you do have the choice. But they're making a ruling in New York City that low-income families are going to have to be provided with internet at 2 levels, and one is like $15 a month, and the other is $20 a month. And you can't have remote schooling without internet connections, and that's happening in poor neighborhoods all over the country.
Yeah.
So, and Tesla putting up all these things in the sky, what are they called, satellites, that are made to provide broadband from space, and Google doing the same. I mean, sooner or later that's going to come to everyone, and at a lower price than what we pay now, I would hope. But I'm about at that point in the year when I have to argue and say I'm about to leave to get my price not to go up. Anyway, Chrome, which is known as a huge CPU hog, has some new features that they just announced. And one of the things is kind of interesting. There's a new link to highlight feature that lets you highlight the text that you want to share. And you just click on it and you choose copy link to highlight, and then you send the link to somebody, and when the person opens the link, they see the exact section of the text that you highlighted. And it's rolling out now, and it's for desktop and Android, and it's coming soon to iOS. That's a good feature. And also Chrome claims to be claiming less of your CPU, where it's a notorious power hog. Recent performance improvements have reportedly reduced CPU usage, which often means longer battery life and less fan noise and less heat. So Chrome now reclaims up to 100 megabytes per tab that you have open, which is more than 20% on some popular sites. And getting a little nerdy with this data, for Mac, it's up to 65% improvement in energy impact when active tabs are prioritized over tabs you aren't using. And so 35% reduction in CPU usage and up to 1.25 more hours of battery life. And the results are similar on Windows, Chrome, iOS, and Linux. And on Android, Chrome starts up 13% faster, even if you have lots of tabs open. And that's a vast improvement for Chrome. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, we talked about the deep linking to deep within a web page to specific text that is not necessarily linked in a previous episode with regard to rich snippets in search results, where Google is deep linking into the exact portion of the web page from which it is pulling the answer for this rich snippet. So it looks like, yeah, they're building that into Chrome. That's a useful feature.
That is.
So on to, what do you got, politics?
I have one. This week was the 50th anniversary of The Great Dictator, the movie. And this is from All the Right Movies. And Charlie Chaplin in The Great Dictator makes one of the greatest movie speeches of all times about why we must not give our hearts to hate. And what he says in this movie from 1940, which could have been yesterday: only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural.
Great movie. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I got a pro tip. This is from SEM Rush's Aoife McRaith. SEM Rush has put together a study of how to prepare for Core Web Vitals, which is kind of wonky, but we'll get to it. Google has stated that the page experience ranking signals how what the experience on a given web page is like, based on Core Web Vitals, which is some of metrics that they're using, are going to be applied globally on all browsers and mobile devices. So Core Web Vitals are a set of 3 individual metrics that are designed to measure the overall page experience of a given web page. One of them is called largest contentful paint. Who writes this stuff? I mean, that does not mean anything to normal people. But
I don't think English was their first language.
God, largest contentful paint is a metric that tracks loading speed. And then there's
Why don't they
cumulative.
just say
Yeah,
loading
exactly.
speed
Loading
tracker?
speed. Yep. And then the other metric is cumulative layout shift. And that's a metric that tracks the visual stability on the page. So when you come to a web page, like this is always the case on news websites, you come to the web page, it loads, and then you start reading the article, and all of a sudden, an ad drops down and pushes the content further down the page. That's an example of a cumulative layout shift. And then first input delay is another metric that tracks the time it takes before someone interacts with the page. So those three metrics make up the core web vitals. And this article or this survey tells you how to optimize for core web vitals, and you should analyze each URL individually because it may have a different score of core web vitals, because the page holds different layouts than other pages, has different content blocks, different elements. So individually analyze each individual URL on its own. But some basic steps you can first take is scale your images to be in the correct placement sizing. So oftentimes people upload an image to WordPress, for example, it's like 2,000 pixels wide, and they only need 600 pixels for the space that they want to put it. And they squeeze all that all down to 600 pixels. That makes it take longer to download. So scale your images to the correct placement sizing. Compress large images, lazy load static content, apply content delivery network to your hosting platform. Remove any unnecessary render blocking resources, serve images in next-gen formats, remove any unused JavaScript, and we'll put a link to the article in the survey. It has some really interesting data in it in the show notes.
Dave, what's lazy load?
That is, you load resources on a web page. So if you have like a inline embedded video or an image down further on the page, it doesn't load until somebody scrolls up to get to that point. So you're not loading everything all at once. You're only loading what people need to see as they're viewing the page.
And there's a specific way you can do that?
Yeah.
Very geeky.
Yes, indeed. So let's wrap this up with some more geek. This is from SparkToro, using data from SimilarWeb. So they organized it into an article that reports that in 2020, 2/3 of Google searches ended without a click. So we just mentioned the rich snippets in search results, where you get the answer for the query that you used in your search, and you don't have to click through to a website to get the answer. That's an example of a zero click. So from January to December 2020, 64.82% of searches on Google, this is both desktop and mobile, ended in search results without clicking to another web property. That number is likely undercounting some mobile and nearly all voice searches, and thus it's probable that more than 2/3 of all Google searches are zero-click searches. So 64.82 are zero-click searches, 33.59 are organic click-throughs that actually results in a click, and then 1.59 are paid click-throughs from Google Ads. We'll put a link to this article in the show notes too, so people can check it out.
1.59 for clicks from ads is pretty low, isn't it?
Content on that Google displays, so that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's not the click-through rate on ads; it's the proportion.
Oh, okay. So that brings us to the end of episode 346 of the Beyond Social Media Show. And to find us, just search Beyond Social Media Show, and we'll have links to everything we discussed today at beyondsocialmediashow.com/346. Let us know what you think. And while you're there, subscribe to our newsletter. I'm here with David Erickson. He's on Twitter as D Erickson. He's on Instagram as DE Erickson. He's on YouTube as eStrategy, and he blogs at e-strategy.blog, which you should really check out. I'm baaack. I'm What's Next on Twitter. My blog is What's Next blog. My YouTube is also What's Next blog. I have a website at baaackman.com. The show, again, the show is beyondsocialmediashow.com, and all of our episodes are there with all of the show notes. And on Twitter, we are at BS Media Show. We are also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can listen to the podcast wherever you get your shows. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're there. And you can tell your smart speaker to play Beyond Social Media Show. So we'll be back next week. I'll be interviewing Miranda Head, who is a TikTok celebrity who hosts the podcast TikTok Famous, and who has more than 7 million followers on TikTok. And we'll talk all about TikTok for brands and how you can maximize that platform. See you next week.